Everybody keeps arguing like it's a simple yes or no question. Why wasn't Caitlin Clark on Team USA? But the deeper you look, the messier it gets, because this was never only about basketball. It was timing, politics, ego, old grudges, and a league that suddenly found itself in the biggest spotlight it's ever had, and not everyone was ready for that. And then Cheryl Miller stepped in, not with a polite take, not with a careful, PR-safe explanation. She basically said what people only whisper, and added one detail that made the whole situation feel personal. Because if you think this is just rookie didn't make the roster, you're already behind. The real story starts with the weirdest part. The people who should have been happiest for Clark looked the most irritated. And that's what makes it so hard to ignore. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes to say out loud. When a league grows fast, it doesn't always feel like growth to everyone inside it. To some people, it feels like replacement, like the camera moved off them and might never swing back. And once that feeling settles in, even normal basketball debate starts sounding like somebody's trying to erase you. That's how calm talk turns into side eyes, shade, and quiet resentment that never gets said directly. But everybody feels it. And to be fair, Team USA has always been brutal. The Olympic roster isn't supposed to be a popularity contest. It's about chemistry, defense, roles, and trust. The tournament is short. The margin for error is tiny. Coaches tend to lean on veterans who can defend on instinct, rebound in traffic, set hard screens, move without the ball, and accept smaller roles without turning it into a drama. A rookie star, especially one used to being the entire system, can struggle with that environment early. So on paper, it's easy to say, this wasn't personal. It was practical. But here's the problem with that explanation. Caitlin Clark isn't a normal rookie. She didn't just enter the WNBA. She arrived like a weather event. Sellouts, record TV numbers, cameras tracking every warm-up, every mistake, every facial expression, and one question following her into every arena. Is the hype real, or is it manufactured? That question sounds harmless, but it's not, because it turns a basketball season into a trial. Early on, the on-court answer really was messy. The physicality hit different. The traps came quicker. The travel was brutal. The schedule was unforgiving. And every time she had a rough stretch, it got treated like breaking news, like the sport was waiting for her to fail just to prove a point. But then the adjustment started happening in real time. The reads got faster. The timing got sharper. The passes got cleaner. The panic stopped. The game started slowing down for her. And suddenly, the same people who were loud in May had to change their argument by June. And that's exactly why the Olympic omission exploded. Because when her name wasn't on that list, two realities collided in the most public way possible. In one reality, Team USA is stacked, elite, and brutally hard to make. There are champions, MVPs, and veterans who've built chemistry over years. In the other reality, the most magnetic player in the sport was sitting at home while women's basketball tried to sell itself to the world on the biggest stage. Both can be true. And that's why the debate never ends, because everyone arguing thinks they're defending something bigger than a roster spot. One side thinks they're defending standards and respect for veterans. The other side thinks they're defending common sense and the future of the sport. That's also where the conspiracy energy came from. Not because people imagine villains plotting in dark rooms, but because the decision felt disconnected from modern sports logic. Stars don't just score points, they pull attention. And attention is oxygen. The Olympics isn't just a tournament. It's marketing. It's visibility. It's a moment to turn casual viewers into long-term fans. So leaving off the biggest magnet in the sport looks like turning down free oxygen. And once fans feel like the league turned down oxygen, they start asking a dangerous question. Was this really about basketball, or was it about control? But this tension didn't start with Team USA. Long before the Olympic list became the headline, there was already a storm around Clark. And what made it uncomfortable is it wasn't coming from random trolls. It was coming from respected voices, legends, and people whose opinions carry weight. That's why the Cheryl Swoops controversy hit as hard as it did. It wasn't simply critique. It was the specific claims people believed didn't line up with reality. Once fans thought the facts were being bent, the conversation stopped being, "I disagree with her style," and started sounding like, "Somebody wants this rookie humbled no matter what." And the moment fans feel, no matter what, everything gets interpreted as a pattern. Then Nancy Lieberman's story added gasoline to the fire, without even trying to. She explained she called swoops privately, friend to friend, to correct what she believed were incorrect stats. No cameras, no clout, just a quiet conversation. And according to Lieberman, that conversation didn't fix anything. It broke the relationship. That detail matters because it reframes the whole thing. If a decades-long friendship can crack over a rookie's name, that's not just basketball disagreement. That's pride. That's ego. That's identity. That's the kind of tension that sits under the surface for years and only comes out when something big triggers it. And once legends start arguing with legends over a rookie, the rookie stops being a player. She becomes a symbol. And symbols create sides. That's when Cheryl Miller stepped in, and the temperature changed instantly. Because Miller isn't just another talking head. She's one of the most respected voices in women's basketball history. When she speaks about pressure, media narratives, and what it feels like to be targeted, she's not guessing. She's remembering her own career. That's why her words hit differently. They don't sound like internet noise. They sound like lived experience. And Miller didn't show up to play nice. She didn't pretend Clark was perfect. She actually acknowledged something critics love to point out. Clark can be cocky. Then Miller flipped it, saying that confidence is earned, and confidence gets judged differently depending on who you are and how the public frames you. That's not a highlight take. That's a quiet truth that makes people uncomfortable because it's hard to argue with. And then she dropped the line that sounded funny at first, until you really think about it. The league is benefiting from Clark's attention. Bigger broadcasts, bigger deals, bigger money pools, bigger stages, more people watching, more people buying tickets, more people arguing about women's basketball than ever before. So pretending she's irrelevant or acting like she doesn't deserve respect doesn't just sound petty. It sounds like self-sabotage. And Miller made it feel like some people were choosing sabotage on purpose, because admitting Clark matters would mean admitting the spotlight moved. Now here's where her defense gets even more powerful. Miller wasn't speaking from a distance. She'd been around Clark close enough to see what cameras don't always show. She talked about Clark's court vision, how she processes the floor like it's happening a step ahead, like she's seeing the next rotation before it arrives. That matters because one of the loudest arguments against Clark, especially in the Team USA conversation, was she doesn't do enough without the ball, or she'll get hunted defensively, or she can't fit. Miller didn't claim Clark was flawless, but she pushed back on the lazy version of the narrative, the version that reduces her to a shooter and ignores everything else she does. And then came the moment that changed the tone of the entire story. It wasn't technical. It was emotional. After Indiana finally got a win early in the season, Miller described hugging Clark and hearing something like, "Finally, somebody's on my side." That line matters more than any stat because it changes what people think they're watching. It suggests Clark felt isolated in a way fans didn't fully understand. Not poor me isolated. More like, I'm taking hits from every direction and even neutral observers are enjoying it. When you're in that situation, everything becomes heavier. Every mistake becomes proof. Every quote gets twisted. Every silence gets interpreted. And if Clark truly felt that weight, then the Olympic omission doesn't feel like a neutral decision anymore. It feels like another chapter in a bigger pressure campaign. Now, does that mean there was a coordinated effort? Nobody can prove that. And a lot of what gets repeated online is just vibe-based storytelling. But the rumors exist because the tension feels real to viewers. Some fans claim veterans didn't want the circus that follows Clark, cameras, constant questions, nonstop attention. Others claim it wasn't fear of her game, but fear of her gravity. Because once the world locks onto one star, everyone else becomes supporting cast. And not every superstar wants to share the screen. Another rumor that refuses to die is that certain decision-makers didn't want the Olympics turning into the Caitlyn show, even if she played limited minutes. That rumor says the problem wasn't her talent, it was her pull. The way she changes the conversation without even speaking. And here's the trick. Even if those rumors are wrong, the league still has to deal with the fact that people believe them. Because belief shapes narratives. And narratives shape reputations. That's where the conversation drifts into the ugliest territory. Identity, privilege, who gets celebrated, who gets marketed, who gets protected, who gets criticized. That topic is real in sports. But online spaces don't reward nuance. They reward fights. So any complex conversation gets flattened into tribal warfare. And once the debate turns into tribal warfare, Every move gets treated like it has hidden meaning. Every hard foul becomes a message. Every cold post-game quote becomes evidence. Every roster decision becomes politics. That's what Cheryl Miller was really calling out. Not just the roster, the storytelling. Because the storytelling is what turns a league's growth into a league's civil war. And here's where the Team USA argument gets even sharper. The strongest standards argument is still this. Team USA needs reliability. The Olympics is not the place to learn on the job. The system is tight. The roles are small. The defense is non-negotiable. Coaches pick players they trust to execute without needing the offense built around them. If you only look at that logic, leaving off a rookie becomes easy to justify. But the counter-argument is brutal. If you're building the next era, you bring the future early. Not as a favor, because it's preparation. Because you want her to learn the system. Because you want the next cycle to start now. And because the Olympics is a stage where you can turn casual viewers into fans for the next decade. So leaving off the biggest magnet in the sport will always feel like turning down free oxygen. That's why people kept calling it a snub, even when analysts argued it wasn't. And once that word gets introduced, snub, the conversation gets emotional. Because snub implies disrespect. It implies intention. It implies someone looked at her and said, "Not you." Now mix that with the earlier controversies, the weird online energy, the constant hype backlash, and the finally someone's on my side moment, and you can see why people started saying, this isn't just basketball. Because it doesn't feel like basketball. It feels like a league trying to figure out whether it knows how to handle a superstar without tearing itself into factions. That's the scariest possibility in all of this. Not that Clark gets criticized. Stars get criticized. The scary possibility is that the league treats its biggest lightning rod like a problem instead of a moment. Because if every new superstar triggers a culture war, growth becomes exhausting instead of exciting. And that's the final layer Cheryl Miller hinted at without screaming it. You can feel the subtext in everything she said. The discomfort isn't about Clark's jumper. It's about what her presence changes. She changes media attention. She changes money. She changes who gets asked questions. She changes who gets marketed. She changes who gets blamed. She changes what the league looks like to a casual viewer. And when you change all of that overnight, somebody's going to feel threatened, even if they never say it out loud. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with an answer that makes everyone mad because it isn't clean. Team USA may have left Clark off for basketball reasons. That can be true. And the league may also be uncomfortable with how much she changes the spotlight. That can be true too. Both can be true at the same time. And Cheryl Miller's message still hangs in the air. Pretending Caitlin Clark's impact doesn't exist is the dumbest play you can run. Because everybody benefits from the attention, even the people who act annoyed by it. So the real question isn't, why didn't she make it? The real question is, what does it say about a league when one rookie can trigger this much emotion and still keep showing up, still producing, still dragging the sport forward? Because if Caitlin Clark keeps rising, the league won't just be forced to pick rosters. It'll be forced to pick a direction. And if you want to stay ahead of where this story goes next, because it's far from over, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and click the next video on your screen right now. Because the next update might not be about basketball at all.